The Coffee King. Vito had always been the self-appointed coffee king in his family. He had the little hand of a wizard no one else had, and this was undeniable. Vito had a good friend named Raffaele. They were very close, for the both of them were coffee kings. One day, Raffaele told Vito a newcomer idea, which was said to be completely unique. He had read somewhere of an incomparable aroma which could be reached by pressing 3 little holes into the coffee powder inside of a coffee pot. And so Vito started having a try on that task, with the enthusiasm of a little child. The very next Sunday at his, he uttered, "Today I'm going to show you what special sort of coffee I will prepare for you," he addressed to his wife, Filomena, and his teeny daughter, Giovanna, who kept watching his busy hands, a little startled and amused, while standing in the kitchen. Vito was moving like a magician. He filled water into the lower part of the espresso pot. "Just watch it, up to that little valve here, and not farther, or else you will have too much liquid." Then he set in the filter again, whereupon he very carefully filled the coffee powder in by a teaspoon. "That's exactly how you make it, pressing in as much as necessary. And now I'm making the 3 little holes in. Raffaele told me they neither ought to be too big nor too small. And ready." "Oh, I see," his wife said, a little tongue-in-cheek. But as it always was, he neither got the hang of that undertone. Being satisfied, he closed the espresso pot and put it onto the stove, at low heat, of course. Curiously, they kept standing there, the 3 of them, waiting for the promised specialty, wife and daughter indeed, rather skeptically. Finally, the gadget started snorting. The scent was really enchanting, and curiously, they tried on that brew with their eyes half closed, which was connected with that much expectation. Filomena and Giovanna exchanged views of their reciprocal compassion. Vito looked at Filomena with his eyes wide open and questioning. "Well, what are you saying?" He was a little disappointed when he heard his wife responding. "Well, my dear, your coffee is okay, but I have to admit that it tastes as it always does. I don't think it's rather special." Giovanna showed a grin on her face. "Just common spoil spots, I guess," Vito commented with a grin. And although he basically not really believed in his wife and daughter being serious on that point, his conviction of his method of preparing coffee would be the best in all the world became somewhat shaky for a short moment. However, for it was nagging on him, he decided to make another attempt on that. Would the weekly visit at his father's, Salvatore, not be the best chance for that? Every Sunday after lunch, Vito looked up his old father, and he used to prepare coffee for them then. He didn't just do that because of meeting his father, but also for he was convinced that being a coffee king would, of course, be some pure and male matter. So he prepared the coffee for his father on this special day, though his sister Nina took the 24-hour care of their father. Washing the dishes he generously left over for the woman. "Well, at least once a week Dad is able to enjoy a pretty good cup of coffee which deserves its name," he used to say. So on that afternoon he took over the preparation of the coffee with the 3 little holes in. He kept mum, and just hoped for an objective confirmation by his father how exceptional his new way of making coffee would be. And though he didn't think a lot of his sister's judgment, he even demanded her to have a seat and to enjoy the coffee as well. But his sister was busy doing the dishes and replied, "No, leave the cup on the table for me. I'm going to drink it later on." She didn't really get the solemnity of that moment and was rather indifferent. The men grinned patronizingly while slurping their hot brew. Salvatore silently took the first and the second sip. Very attentively, Vito was watching the wrinkled face of his father. He couldn't find the slightest expression of surprise or even approving. However, when the father started speaking again, Vito began to beam. Finally he got it, Vito thought. There is nothing worse than such a cold brew, his father Salvatore commented instead, while having a discontent look at his daughter Nina. His son had the same expression in his face, but more because of his disappointment. He didn't know whether to say a thing or not, but was instantly torn out of his confusion, for Nina, with her murder look, went toward the two men and yelled at them. What do you want from me? Instead of being grateful for me, playing the maid for you, you swear to me just because I don't drink my coffee when you mean me to do it. Nina, who was totally fed up with playing always just the fool's errand, leaped on that chance by accepting this challenge. She remembered that she once had read in one of these feminine magazines, which she kept next to the basket with the woolen balls in, a recipe for a really good cup of coffee. So she rummaged it, and when she had found it, she was beaming in her face. That was why she provided a surprise on the following Sunday. Before Vito was at his father's, and her father had woken up from his daily noon snooze, she started preparing a pot of fresh coffee. The first liquid, which was coming from the espresso pot, that thick and strong one, she filled into a cup. Their sister, who hadn't complained for years, changed into a tearing stream of distress and vexation, and counted up everything she was used to just suffer from in the past. Eventually she said, "Moreover, what do you actually think? Which sort of genius one must be to be able to make a cup of coffee? What's the tricky about it? To fill an espresso pot and put it on the stove. Well, if you think to be that great, you will make the coffee next week, and then we are going to see." Vito challenged his sister with his eyebrow raised, as well as a really mean and nasty smirk, which was obviously owed to the strong failure of his coffee procedure with the 3 little holes. Then Nina covered the liquid with sugar. She stirred it up with a teaspoon, as long as some golden foam cream had come into being. After she put the cup away in the fridge. When Vito arrived, she prepared another fresh pot of coffee and sweetened the steaming brew with sugar and her previously prepared cream. What a miracle! Oh, the skeptical and challenging expression on the men's faces had turned into surprise and admiration. On the coffee, there was foaming up some soft cream, exactly as on the espresso at the bar. "How did you make that?" the 2 men asked one voice, while looking at her as if she was another human. On that achievement, Nina had clearly acquired the title of the Coffee Queen. On that day, Salvatore had rinsed off the cups, and after Vito had dried them with a towel and put it back into the cupboard. Upon that, he was in an enthusiastic mood, and left to surprise his wife Filomena and his daughter Giovanna with that ultimate discovery.